Hello there guys and welcome to Daily Updates. If you do a research amongst the many people of South Africa, one by one, and ask who has been a victim of crime in South Africa, you'll come out with almost 90% of the people saying that I am a victim of crime. And amongst those people, there are those that are not lucky. They haven't been lucky to report or tell the story of how they experienced crime, because along the duty of crime, they lost their lives. South Africa is a beautiful country, but it's a shame that crime is painting us in a wrong image. Now, when you look at the World Population Review, it says the top 10 countries with the highest crime rate. And from 1 to 10, you look at it, you try and find your country. And South Africa appears at number 3. Expressed in per 100,000 people globally. South Africa number 3, scoring 76.86. So from the stats produced by the World Population, we go back to the local one produced by the South African Police Service. Now when you look at it, it paints a very, very sad picture, because the stages January to March 2019 until January to March 2023, you look at it and just wonder. In just 3 months, you get 6,000 people killed, as compared to 2019, where there were 4,896. Sexual offenses, 13,000. Attempted murder. This chart paints a very sad story that is happening in South Africa. And mind you, it just says January to March. If they put a whole table of saying January to December, we are going to be very ashamed of the country that we live in, because crime has just become this monster that everyone needs to fear. And we cannot look at government and say, can you please try and come out with means to prevent this thing called crime? Because they've already failed. There is no way that we can ask them how can they help combat crime, because the government is failing. It is difficult for it to contain the crime that is happening in South Africa. They can deploy as many police as they like, but there is too much rot, even in government, to stop this thing called crime. Now I want us to look at the very many aspects of crime that are happening in South Africa, and then relook at the fact that what can be done to combat crime, or at least reduce the level of crime that is happening in South Africa, because we are a shame. The third in the world, number 1 in Africa. What does it say about us as the people of South Africa, living in a country that we love so much, but the level of crime being so high that each and every day, when you sleep, there are gunshots. You wake up, gunshots. When is it gonna end? The following incident in the video, it is an illustration of how the criminals have become comfortable with committing crime in South Africa. This particular incident took place in Polokwane, in a town in Limpopo called Polokwane. Now, the criminals do this thing in public, in front of everyone. And instead of people intervening, they just watch, because they're afraid to be picked amongst all the crowd and be pointed at as the next victim. Many South Africans can attest to the fact that you drive in a car, you stop at a robot. If the windows are down, they come take whatever they want and then leave. They can do that while you are at an ATM. They can do that while you are going into a store. They rob you because they can, and no one can say or intervene in that. Those are the small crimes that you look at and say, this thing police should be solving easy. And also we look at ourselves saying that as a community, people are robbing someone who's probably has the last money to feed their family. And we sit there and look at that person getting robbed. Once those people go, we feel sorry for him. But the fact that it could be you the next day is the worrying factor. Because these guys know that nothing will ever be done to them. Because they're not even afraid of the fact that cameras could be watching. They enjoy doing what many are crying of. Because to them, it's like a full-time job. They are taking crime as a full-time job. You go out, you go somewhere, you come back, you are crying because whatever that you wanted to do, they took all the money. The hard-earned money of many South Africans is taken by criminals. So the issue here is that criminals have become very comfortable with committing crimes. They don't care about the consequences. And the worrying factor is that most of them get caught, but they never spend more than 2 months in jail. Next thing they are out, going to commit the same crimes again. And it's also worrying because you arrest all these people, you put them in jail, and then the population in jail becomes so much that they will end up saying, well, let's release some of them early. Because this rot is happening amongst the millions of South Africans. Each and every town in South Africa is full of criminals. And they do not care what are the consequences, because to them, going to jail for a month or two and then going on the outside and being told that you are going to go on trial on this certain date, to them is luxury, because you can continue doing what you were doing without worrying about the consequences. So there is this thing called borderless Africa. And I think there are many people debating it. But for Africa to be borderless, African countries need to clean themselves and be pure before they can be borderless. You cannot be borderless while another country is a threat to you. This time we look at a country called Mozambique, which is our neighbor. So what happened is that there are a lot of people who steal cars from South Africa, take them back to Mozambique. And once it crosses the border, it will never be traced again. They go into Mozambique, they can put a new number plate, or most of them, they just leave them with that South African number plate. It goes around in Mozambique. You can go from South Africa and go into Mozambique and search for your car. You find it, but you can never take it back to South Africa, because the procedure and proving that this is your car is going to be very draining. You end up losing a lot of money where you could have just easily bought a new car. So what happened is that most of the people, the Mozambicans criminals and the South African criminals, are working together. They commit crimes. People steal cars in South Africa. They drive them into Mozambique, disguising them however they do. Some of them put knickknacks on top of a car, and then inside there is a buggy. Some of them can put whatever they put. And then what they do is that they transfer it into Mozambique in the hope that if it crossed the border, it will never be recovered. And thanks to the hard-working South African army, the South African National Defence Force, most of these cars, most of these acts are caught. These people are caught before they could even take the car into Mozambique. But you know, each and every time there are people who do work with all their hearts. There are those that are criminals themselves. The people working at the border, it is easy for them to be bribed with just 10,000 to say that, don't arrest me. Let me move this car into Mozambique and then this is your 10,000. And then that person receives that money, goes and feeds his or her family with that money. The tears and blood of the people that got stolen from. So he goes and feeds their family with that money. So you are literally just directing the proceeds of crime to your children, saying that I'm feeding them. But in a way, you are feeding them of the poison that many are crying because they've lost their belongings. That is the rot that is happening in South Africa. It is the criminal from this side, and in the middle, it is the people who are working for the government of South Africa. letting criminals go into the other country with the stolen goods. Bravo to the many who make sure that they prevent them from doing that. But in each and every group, there are rotten potatoes. And we see them amongst the many people who are working for government. And it's such a shame that these people have no conscience to say that, how do I let people do something like this that is damaging the image, or that is really making someone cry because they've lost their belongings? If only people could have that, then maybe we can have a solution to the problem that we are having. You know, I've watched a program on DSTV Moja Love called Sizoktola on the 18th of June, or it was on Sunday, 2023. So basically on that episode, they caught this lady who is actually in the line of committing crime. She's enjoying committing crime and getting money. She works for Home Affairs, and then she's dating this Nigerian guy, where the Nigerian guy is committing crime, he's selling drugs. And what this lady is doing is that she's getting money to help create visas, a passport, you name it. So she has a software on her phone, the Home Affairs software, because she works at Home Affairs. And she can literally be at home. Someone would just say, I need this ID, I need this software. I need this ID, I need this visa. She can easily go inside the Home Affairs software and help create an ID for this person who's not from South Africa. So she was caught and they put her down saying that we know what you do. And she tries to say that I know nothing about this. But eventually she admits that this is what I do. As per what the Minister of Home Affairs will be saying in the next clip, really touching at the issue of this lady. So, but my problem is that we have a problem of crime in South Africa. Not only is the crime committed by the so-called starving people, hungry people who are not finding job. The crime is committed by the people who have got jobs. The people who are paid a lot of money to do their job. And these people enjoy committing crime, enjoy destroying their own country, because to them, it's all about the money, not about how am I destroying the same country that I want to live for my children. Please listen to the following video by Aaron Motsoaledi, the Home Affairs Minister.
On the issue of corruption, Chairperson, regardless of how we attack it, as we fight it every day, we have got a counter-corruption unit that is working up to so far. Just from last year only, we have already suspended 32 officials, and we are charging them, and we are putting some to the hogs. 2 nights ago, people saw something on TV about the lady who was selling drugs and all that and giving IDs. The following day, she had already been arrested. We've already suspended her and we are charging her. We do that all the time. The lady who was selling visas to Pakistani nationals to come here illegally from Namibia, we charged her and fired her. And we handed her over to the Hawks. Unfortunately, she died when the Hawks were just about to arrest her. Yes, we do that every day. We arrest lots of people.
The issue of fighting crime is not only for the government. It is also for us, the people of South Africa. And by us coming together, sharing ideas and trying to find ways into solving this problem of crime, we can be helping in adding our numbers in fighting crime. Of course, it is the duty of the provincial, the local and the national government into solving crime. But we know most of them are just sitting there and becoming a percentage in the people who are committing crime. So the people of South Africa need to sit down and say, what are the ideas that we can come up with? You look at someone like the Premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, and also the Premier of Western Cape. They have their policing, the provincial policing. I mean, they call them in Gauteng, they call them Amapanyaza, who goes around making sure that in the communities they help combat crime. They find drug dealers, they deal with them. They find people who are committing all these examples of crime. They make sure that that they bring them to books and they work together with the police, the national police. And by doing that, they really adding numbers into solving the problem of crime. I want to speak about Panyaza Sufi, and to speak about him, you look at the example that he brought. He said that we need to really bring technology into fighting crime, taking things like drones into helping us combat crime. And when he spoke about that, I really went back and looked at a similar incident that was to fight a problem that in Alexander they had a problem of rats. So by having a problem of rats, they sat down and say, how do we deal with these many rats that are happening, that are destroying the people of Alexander, the rats infestation? And the solution was that we get many owls, we bring them into Alexander. These owls will be able to fight and kill the rats. So they bring them into Alexander, and after bringing them, the very thing that they brought to solve the problem was just disappearing. Those owls were just disappearing, and it was a question of what is really going on, because we came out with a solution. And when they did their investigations, they found out that the people of Alexander are killing the rats because some people have their belief saying that, well, the rats, the owls are practicing witchcraft. They are adding to the number of the witchcraft because they can be used for witchcraft. So for them to be able to avoid witchcraft, they decided to kill these owls. So you rather have problem of rats and avoid witchcraft. So that problem of killing rats ended up becoming a failure, another wasteful expenditure, because some people in Alexander said, no ways, we are not going to get bewitched by some people who are going to be using these owls and then kill us. So we rather have rats and avoid getting killed by witches. That is just a funny example that I wanted to make. But going back to the topic, you get drones, and the problem is that the same drones are going to get stolen by the thieves. They take this thing and go and sell them to other people. And when you look at the problem of cell phone robbery, cell phone theft, the people who steal the phones sell it to the Indians, people who are selling at those Indian shops. This is not about being xenophobic or anything. They take those phones, they sell it to them, and those people, because they can fix phones, they open that phone and resell it at a higher price. So now here's the solution. You go to those guys, you make sure that they follow the law. And you go from time to time and make sure that, like, for example, if you really need to test how a person is aiding the crime, you just find someone and just use them and say, take this phone and go and sell it to them, and lie and said, this is my own phone, whatnot. If those people take that phone and resell it or accept that phone, you know that these people are really playing a role in this crime that is happening. You go around all South Africa making sure that you deal with this problem. People become compliant. You are helping in combating crime. And the community, if we are a community, if we are in a town, if we are in public, someone starts stealing a car, people they try to steal money or anything from someone. What we need to do as a community, as the people of South Africa, we come together, make sure that we stop that person from committing that crime. And by stopping him, most of them will be fearful of committing these stupid crimes that they are committing. And by doing that, we know that criminals are starting to have fear instead of them enjoying committing crimes without the repercussion, without worrying that, well, what if I get arrested? Because we know they get arrested and in 2 months they're out. The law of South Africa needs to play a vital role. As much as you arrest many of them and the prisons are getting full, something needs to be done. A lesson needs to be taught to these criminals. For example, you go back to the people who are working for government, Home Affairs, who are committing crimes, making sure that at the border post, They get paid by these people who are stealing cars from South Africa, transporting them into Mozambique and any other province, any other country. You make sure that you put them down. There is no way that it must be acceptable for a public servant to play a role in crime. If we do a lifestyle audit to each and every department, we are going to help stop the level of crime. Because a public servant can just have a big car, and if you look at how much do they earn, they can't really afford that car. Then you have a cause to go and re-look at how they acquired that expensive thing. That is making sure that you instill fear in this public servant, saying that if I commit crime, I'm shaming the country, I'm shaming myself, and in turn, I can be jailed for a long time. Those are the many instances that you can put in helping combat crime. But the biggest thing that has to happen is the attitude of the government. Of course, they can try and hire as much police as they can, but it is not helping. As long as themselves do not change how they behave, do not change how they are criminals in the same government that they are running, most of the crime in South Africa might not change. So it has to be them, it has to be us, it has to be everyone, so that the same country that we're saying that we are going to leave us to our children, we need to start building it and making sure that if there is a criminal, we have to deal with that person decisively, so that next time they think about committing crime, they worry about what is going to happen to me, like the neighborhood watch. If that thing gets brought out in all the neighboring villages, in all the neighboring suburbs, everywhere in the country, the townships, if we come across that and we develop that mentality of saying that if you see someone stealing, let it be your child, it can be your brother or sister, anyone, you must make sure that you report them to the community. They deal with those people, not in terms of killing them, but making sure that they bring them to book. And to men, men are the people who commit crimes like rape, women, children abuse. There needs to be a better thinking amongst men. Programs can be made and people can be taught with messages saying that stop this and that. There are days that are dedicated to women and children abuse, but it doesn't change. So it has to start with them. You have to sit down and start with you and saying that I as a man will be shameful to see myself committing this crime, and the next person who's my brother, that person and the other person, you sit together, you sit down and change your mentality into committing crime. That in turn is going to help combat or reduce the level of crime in South Africa. Of course, the state is the one that has to really look at itself and say, if the people of South Africa change, what am I doing to really add to the numbers that are reducing crime? They must stop asking for cold drink and bribes. These traffic officers, when they start doing that and accepting the money that they are paid to do, for the work that they are paid to do, crime will be reduced. Those are the factors that can add to reducing crime. Because you commit crime and say, this is just a small thing. That small thing is a very big thing to the race that the world is putting out there, making you the third largest country in terms of crime. So the South Africans, it is for us to come together and rebuild this country as a crime-free country. I thank you for tuning in and having a conversation with me. Hopefully you can just write your stories and your comments in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, guys. Cheers.